Good morning. My name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real People, Real Stories. In this episode today, I am excited to have Dr. Priya Saklani join me from Mumbai, India. Well, for you, Priya, it is evening. Good evening to you.
Hi Jay, very well. I'm feeling very well. Thank you. It's 9:34 to be precise, and I'm so delighted to be on this show. And thank you so much for having me once again. It's always a pleasure and a delight to speak with you. And thank you so much for the opportunity. And thank you so much for having me again. So
Well, you're
yeah,
welcome.
it's nice.
It's been some time since you and I have gone live and done a show. I don't remember what. I know it was sometime earlier this year in 2019 when we got together and our show is really based on you sharing your backstory of your life and navigating through some significant life events that laid the foundation for you living in the world of just surviving and holding on for dear life. And through the process of healing, you have come full circle to a large extent. And today you are an author, you are a coach, you are a healer. And and we have continued our relationship has really grown and flourished. You have been such a loving friend to me. You check in with me on average about once a week just to say hi. How are you feeling? And I've been following you. You know, it wasn't that long ago that you, my friend, had the courage to start your own live webinars on your page, and I have had the honor of being in your community, listening and watching and learning from you as you becoming one of my teachers. And it wasn't that long ago, I think it was last week, that I was participating in your community, listening to you do a webinar on a topic that just absolutely resonates with me. And I just reached out to you immediately thereafter and said, Priya, let's do another show together, except this time, rather than the focus be, let's say, on your life, let's have the focus be on a topic that is dear to both of yours, your life and my life, which is how to create a relationship of consciousness between people, between couples, partners, perhaps even friends, parents. But so in any event, welcome to the studio. Thank you for coming in. As you said, you're 12 and a half hours ahead of me. It's 9:30 p.m. It's your evening, but welcome to the studio. And I'd like to invite you perhaps maybe just to spend just a few minutes for those that are not familiar with who you are and your story, your backstory. Maybe just give a real high level backstory, and that will can bring us right up to today. And then we'll deep dive into our topic while I push out to different channels our broadcast.
Thank you so much, Jay. Thank you. I'm humbled and I'm honored for your kind words. Thank you so much for the introduction. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Dr. Priya. I'm a holistic life coach. I'm an author of the book, The Wounded Healer, and I'm also a healer. So this was not so long ago. I started my journey. My journey has been actually a life full of abuse. And those of you who want to know more, please, I encourage you to buy my book, The Wounded Healer. So after healing myself from my 19 years of childhood abuse, picking myself up from the ashes and building myself up and doing all the work, still work in progress, here I am teaching and coaching and mentoring and helping other people who are in the similar situations as I am. So I've kind of come full circle from my abuse to my purpose. My wounds, my trauma literally showed me my purpose in life. And this is what I'm doing today. I also work with animals with energy healing, and but most of my work is around is holistic life coaching, and bulk of my work revolves around inner child work, which I think is very, very crucial to everything, because childhood literally impacts every area of our lives. So I've literally dedicated my life to helping individuals who have gone through child abuse, who've gone through trauma, who suffer from PTSD, dysfunctional families, so on and so forth. So this is what I do. And I do have a website as well, www.priyasaklani.com, if any of you are interested in reaching out later on. And that's pretty much about me. So I'm just on my purpose. I'm healing, hurting, happy, doing everything together. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm just doing it. And yeah, that's about it. And today, and Jay has been very, very sweet. Relationships is one thing which I really wanted to talk about on my life. It was there in the pipeline for a very long time, but that day was the divine timing. I just got inspired, and I just came online to speak about it, because I usually do lives with what's happening collectively and what I see in my clients and what people are struggling with. So I just pick up that frequency, and that is the topic that I will pick up, that, okay, you know what, this might benefit people around. So that's how I came about conscious relationships. And I think that's next level love. And if we are getting conscious in other things, we really need to get conscious in our relationships, because that's the heart of our lives. And something which we really struggle, and the best of us, including me. So I think people, once they have the insight, once they understand what relationships are, why are they difficult, and what are conscious relationships, how can we make these current relationships, how can we transform them into conscious relationships? I think so many marriages which end up in a divorce, so many relationships which fail, I think we can salvage that, and people can be more aware and mindful of what exactly is happening, instead of moving from one relationship to another, finding that satisfaction or looking for that fulfillment. So I think it's a very important topic in today's times. And what I see is relationships per se are going through a huge redesign, because old paradigm is actually not working out for people. They really don't know, they're not satisfied in their relationships, and they don't know how to make their relationships work. So
Priya,
that's when, yes.
Priya, let me ask you, if you may. I'd like to ask you to break it down in simple terms. What is your definition of a conscious relationship? Because I know if we invert consciousness, it's unconscious. So what is the difference between a conscious relationship and an unconscious relationship? Let's start there.
Okay, sure. Yeah, wow, really brilliant question, because this will just set the stage for everything. A conscious relationship is actually a romantic relationship where two people, two partners are literally committed to a purpose. And that purpose is actually growth. That is individual growth, collective growth as a couple, and also growth for the humanity, like make the world a better place. So it's only focused on growth, and both the partners are only committed on that, instead of what we are doing in our current relationships. Our current relationships, we get into relationships because we want to satisfy our personal needs, right? That our partner will behave this way, or we want our partner to act in a certain manner, do certain things, so that we feel good and we feel satisfied. And we can do that for some time, honeymoon period, or few years or few months, but it doesn't really last. And eventually people are dissatisfied in those kind of relationships, and love actually fails us, right? Because we are dependent on another human being to literally cater to our needs and desires and whatever's things that we're expecting. We're looking for that happiness and everything externally. So we're codependent in those relationships. So people are only pleasing each other or being a certain way. We're not being authentic in those relationships. So that's the reason those relations, and there is no growth in our current relationships. We do not grow in those relationships because they're more stifling than they are embracing growth. And when we talk about growth, growth is basically looking inwards, seeing what I need to work in and of myself. Instead of projecting my traumas onto my partner, I'm looking inwards and saying, hey, what is going on within me? And I take full, complete responsibility of me, and my partner, if he's conscious enough, he takes complete responsibility for what he's projecting or what he's going through. So in conscious relationship, there are a couple of attributes which I would like to speak in detail, Jay, further down in the webinar, which are literally like the trademarks, or you can say the qualities of a conscious couple, right? We can dive into that deeper, but in a nutshell, conscious relationships give expansion, growth. They're only focused on growing, and they're not really focused on how to make a relationship work, because these conscious couples understand that they use that relationship as an opportunity to grow. They understand that if they were alone, they would not have that opportunity to grow because their partner is going to be mirroring their stuff and then they need to work on, and they're only looking for that experience. They're not really looking for how it will work, what will happen to the relationship, and so on and so forth. Whereas in our current relationships, we're very codependent, we're very dysfunctional, we're very unconscious, I would say. We're not even aware what is happening in our relationship. So we're unhappy, then we move from one relationship to another relationship. We carry the same patterns and same behaviors we're repeating there, and the next one, and the next one, the next one. So we're picking up the partners from our wounded subconscious mind, and so on and so forth. Whereas in conscious relationships, both the parties are really aware of what they're getting into and what the work entails moving forward. So in a nutshell,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Priya. So I'm the male. I was taught, I've got my own belief systems and how to engage in a relationship, right? So my belief is that, well, once in a while, I'll bring home flowers. Oh, and if we get into a fight, I'm definitely going to pick up flowers on the way home from the office. And the other role in, as far as me showing up in a relationship, is telling my partner that I love them. And in between, we may have a date night once a week where we get together, and we may have dinner. But date night for a lot of couples in the US includes going to a movie where we're just sitting there watching something unfold on a screen. But we're still not engaged. We're not communicating. We're not connecting. Now, I'm just describing a very general role of a typical modern male in society. Now, would you say that what I just described falls under the category of an unconscious relationship or a conscious relationship?
Well, depends first whether you are conscious to begin with, right? Now, let's say if your partner is upset, I would say partly unconscious, because somewhere you're taking the responsibility of making your partner feel better by getting her flowers. Hey, even if you're conscious, you can get flowers, you can have a date night, you can really engage, be authentic with each other, and so on and so forth. However, in current relationships, what we do is we take that responsibility and we're inauthentic. So what we're doing is we're telling our partner or what we're portraying or projecting is that we have a fight, so that person needs to make me feel better, or you're doing it so that you are probably afraid of a conflict or a confrontation, or you don't want to face the drama or the music when you get home, right? So you're somewhere underplaying yourself, somewhere you're suppressing your real true feelings, which you might have, but you won't tell that to your partner. Instead, you will just make her feel better. You can also do that in a conscious relationship, but I'll get to that in a bit. But most of the times, so males in our society will do this, that okay, just to kind of keep her quiet, take her out, take her, wine her, dine her, get her some flowers, and then I'm like off the hook. However, in a conscious relationship, what you would do is you would not take responsibility for how your partner is feeling, not from the detached perspective, not from the perspective that you don't care for your partner. And if your partner is conscious enough, if she's upset about something, she needs to look inside, how are you making her feel and where is that coming from? So conscious couples are aware that the relationship is being affected by past wounds. So they get into the relationship expecting all the things and whatever unfolds, whether it's betrayal, abandonment, rejection, and so on and so forth. So there you have to be like literally come as you are. You don't have to underplay, suppress yourself, please somebody else, make them do things which please you instead, whether they are being authentic or not. So there's a lot of authenticity in conscious relationship. And if you're giving the flowers with complete authenticity, where your partner is doing the work and everything, and still you want to make her feel better, or it makes you feel better, you're giving the flowers because it makes you feel better. So you're doing it, not because it will kind of, tone down the atmosphere in the house, or it'll kind of save you from some sort of conflict or drama. So how authentic are you being when you're taking her out on a date? How authentic are you being when you are taking her? Do you really want to, or are you in avoidance of something? So that's the question you would ask if you are turning from unconscious to conscious, that am I doing it just for her or for myself? Do I feel like or not? So it's all about authenticity, not what you are taught to, not your belief systems, not what you have watched your parents do over the years. It's something totally different, which I just gave an example of, that you need to do what you feel like and what not make your partner feel better by you behaving a certain way or doing certain things for your partner. Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed what you just shared. You know, one of the experiences that I've gone through. I was in a 30-year marriage. I'm no longer in that relationship, married to my ex-wife, and I'm in a new relationship. I say new. It's because it's something I hadn't experienced before. It's very different than all of my prior relationships, and it's not because let's say I found my twin flame or soulmate as it's referred to. It's because we both, on the onset, we both came into the relationship desiring and wanting the same things out of it. We were from day one, almost from day one, maybe it was the second day, we asked each other, what is it that we want out of the relationship? And for both of us, the answer truly was the same. It was something that we both had lacked. We have over 50 years, 52, 53 years of marriage combined between us. But what we wanted was to experience healthy intimacy. Now, sex is just one component, it's one part of healthy intimacy. It is not what healthy intimacy is, though. It's just a piece of it. It's way more profound than just what happens in a bedroom or somewhere else, perhaps. But we truly were aligned. We wanted the same, and yet we hadn't had that experience in our life. And we were both in our 50s when we met up, and so it really became the foundation for us willing to learn and grow together and learn how to show up and grow together, because we both were willing to acknowledge that we were like little children. We didn't know. We knew what we had. We knew what didn't work. And we hadn't experienced how a healthy relationship, a conscious relationship could feel and could be. What I love about what you said is, how many times do we buy flowers for a partner? And we're doing it, if we really think about what is our motive, why are we doing it? It's to patch things up. Sometimes it's our only way of conveying what we don't have the courage to convey through our words. Flowers are a metaphor, a symbolism for love, for hope, for caring. But the flowers speak in their own way. But I know this is I don't buy flowers that often these days. And it's not because I'm consciously deciding not to buy the flowers. It's just because I'm showing up in a much more profound way. I show up through my words that I speak and the actions that I take in a relationship. I don't need some external catalyst or some external thing to connect with my partner today. I don't need something outside of myself to let her know how I feel about her. I just have to be willing to show up. I don't need the flowers to show up. I need to show up. It's kind of the same thing. Like when you're in a relationship and there's a lot of, let's say, disagreement, or argument, or that eventually turns into disrespecting one another. And we have a tendency to say, I'm sorry. Now, when we say I'm sorry to a partner or anyone that we're engaged in this type of relationship with, a conscious one, unless we change our behavior, After about a half a dozen times of saying I'm sorry, it means nothing because it's empty words. It's words that have no consciousness behind them because we have no intention of changing.
Yep.
Right? So
Absolutely.
tell me more about, from your perspective, what is, let's spend some time talking about what does it mean. You mentioned the word growth a couple of times, that both partners are committed to growth. What does that mean? I don't think we're talking about growing in size or dress size or waist size. We're talking about growing in a very different way. Tell me more about that.
Yes. Yeah, this is actually soul level growth. If I like, what our purpose actually in this time space reality is growing mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. So we're talking about that kind of growth, and anything that's coming in the way of that growth or that ascension, which is our wounding, our limited beliefs, our patterns, our behaviors, and so on and so forth, grow through that, grow from that. So it's a vase, I would say, soul level growth in every way, where you're using this relationship or another person to show you where your work lies, and then you're growing through, you're going inwards, doing the inner work, right? And leveling up whatever shows up. So we're talking about that growth and that expansion and that connection. We're looking for, this is like, I won't even call them relationships, these are partnerships, these are like deep connections. You see, when you show up in complete authenticity with another person, you're willing to go to those vulnerable spaces where you're like, hey, you know what, I'm ashamed of this, or I was guilty of this, or I feel this, where you're authentically communicating. It's such a healing process, Jay, and it's very hard for people to do that. And I've witnessed it in my own relationship from my own partner. It's hard for people to speak what they feel. It's hard for them to show their vulnerable parts. So once you kind of show up authentically in that relationship, you literally feel heard and seen and loved. And we're talking about intimacy earlier, what you were talking about. I would say intimacy is intimacy. So conscious relationship is not deprived of love, but it's love. It's like a total embodiment of love, where it's unconditional, love is basically being present, being authentic, being present for those parts of the relationships which might not look very pretty, being there for each other even when we are not lovable or not acceptable, So showing each other exactly what we are inside out, and then taking another person as a part of himself or herself. In my view, that is love. So loving unconditionally without any attachments, and loving from a place of like, even if let's say, for example, your partner is down and out, if I'm conscious, I would not bother about buying gifts or flowers or anything. I would just sit down with my partner, or I would just look at the situation and say, how can I practice love in this situation? Do I allow him to be? Do I allow him to process? Do I allow him to help him do his inner work? Or should I just be supporting him unconditionally, not in the thing of fixing the relationship, mending it so that I feel better, just unconditional presence of being there, being present with him. So it's that kind of love and growth that we're talking about. So other relationships are gratification. This relationship is all about expansion, growth in the way where you're evolving. It's like a process of evolution. And conscious couples don't look at it as a destination that we need to achieve. It's the journey that we're taking together. And no matter what's showing up, good, bad, ugly, we are there for each other. First, we are there for ourselves. Then we are there for each other. So even though, let's say you're my partner and I'm triggering the hell out of you, I am still supporting you, but you are doing the inner work. I'm not letting you be that, hey, you go and sort out your triggers and meet me after 3 days. No, I'm still there. So this is how we support. We grow simultaneously on our own paths, but we're supporting each other. You get what I mean? So it's another kind of love which human beings probably have no concept till now. It's unconditional love, love without attachments, love without gratifications, that you do this for me and I do this for you. It's like supporting each other while we both are growing or taking our soul path and our own journey, if that makes sense.
That's called a scorecard. You know, when we're
Yeah,
keeping score of how many things I've done for you and how few things you've done for me or given to me, we're
yeah,
managing a scorecard, and there is no, I'd say there that lacks consciousness.
Con-
If
consciousness. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's your inner child. That's like you haven't done enough, or there is something that is lacking, or what I'm needing from you, which I can't give to myself. See, we still need people. We can't do relationships in and of ourselves. We will still need our partners to hug us and love us and hold us, and all those things will happen, but from a different space, not from like blaming, not from a blaming space, but like, I need you at this point in time, or I need 10 minutes, I need your presence, or stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Not from the place that you didn't do this and I didn't do that and this should have been done and blah, blah, blah. But there are certain basics, which is like communication. So if I am conscious and my partner is unconscious, and I'm looking for that authentic communication and it's not coming, you see? So then again, we are lopsided over there and there's an off balance. So it's not, oh, you are not doing this for me. You need to be just authentic so that I can understand what you're doing. As a conscious person, I know probably what's happening and what I'm triggering. But the other person needs to go level up to a place where we are on the same page, or else the relationship fails. And that's what I have seen. I mean, if I've seen in my line of work, and scorecards, and that is all coming from our programming, all coming from the place where we've seen our relationships. I mean, hey, you know, Jay, look at this. uh, Forget about everything else. Look at our school systems. For, I don't know, 13 odd years, they teach us history, geography, science. Is there any subject on relationships? So when we don't find any solutions there, we're looking at our parents for that solution. So they become our role models. We're hoping that they have the answers, but unfortunately, they don't have the answers to that, right? So we see all of that stuff growing up, because that was our primary relationship. When we touched down in this time space reality, that was our first relationships. And we literally carry that blueprint, I would say, into our adult life, because that's all we know.
if
So
you're in,
unfortunately,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
unfortunately, most of us, and I'll tell you, I don't know if there's any person on this planet who doesn't have trauma in childhood, honestly. Uh, but what I'm saying is that, unfortunately, people who have gone through trauma or abuse or dysfunctional families, our definition of love is very, very sad. Because what we saw abuse, and we saw people who loved us are abusing us. So this must be love. So half the time we don't even know that's our concept of love, by the way. So we're okay with abuse and we're okay with love because that's what we saw. So our definition of love actually is from the subconscious mind, not from the conscious mind. So all those things that you see, the traumas and projections and everything, it's because we believe that that is love. And from that frequency, we're attracting partners from our wounded parts. And then we're repeating cycles because we're seeing our parents in those partners. And we're thinking, wow, he must be loving me to death because my dad was like that. So now if my father, let's say, for example, was absent emotionally and physically, right? So I grew up with that, oh, I didn't have a dad, or what, I didn't have a male figure. So when I'm attracting people from that frequency, where I'm attracting partners who are physically absent and of course emotionally absent. And for me, I'm okay and I'm settling. And I see people settling in relationship because for them, this must be fine. This is okay. Everybody does it and it's normal, or they call it fate, or they're ending up divorcing each other. So we are attracting our partners from a wounded perspective, from our wounded parts, what we've seen in our childhood, and trying to manage that stuff with whatever limited knowledge that we have of relationships, what to do. And that's why we end up failing in love. And this is my example I'm giving you. I had an absent father. My relationships were either the person who was long distance or emotionally unavailable. So
If
that
you're
was
if you're
my
in a
biggest wound.
relationship,
And
if you're in a relationship with a partner that is not aligned from the perspective of working on growth for themselves, they're working. They're working 10, 12-hour days at the office. And they come home, they have dinner, they turn on the TV, or they pick up the newspaper, or they read the newspaper online, and they're somewhat, as you just described, emotionally unavailable. Yet you're showing up because you're not happy, and you are beginning to invest in yourself and become an awakened individual. How does that work? Do you think it's possible that that couple can come together? And or what have you seen play out within your own practice of coaching?
Yes, very important question, Jay. And 1% of us are conscious, by the way. So we don't really, I mean, of course, people are waking up, but it's a brilliant question. And I'll tell you something. And this has happened in my line of practice so much. What we do is we have attracted these partners from that wounded frequency, right? Now, these partners are on their own path. Maybe they've not chosen to be conscious now, but we have started our inner work. We are doing our stuff and so on and so forth, inner child healing, traumas, wounds, everything. However, once we heal those wounded parts and we're raising our frequency to a level where we're not willing to settle in this relationship with whatever is coming from our partner, because it's conscious, unconscious, you've healed that part from where you've attracted your partner. Either your partner will be ejected out of your orbit completely by the universe, because you will not be able to put up with the stuff that you were putting up with before when you were from a wounded psyche. And that's the trouble, what I see in so many of my clients. I have had people who have done processes with me of inner child work and overnight, the next morning, they have walked out on years upon years of marriage that this is something, how was I even tolerating this? The self-love comes in, the self-respect comes in, and they understand that he's on a different path. And I'm sorry, I cannot kind of come down to his level or join him in his frequency. He needs to either level up. So that also happens, by the way. Your partner will show a different frequency because remember, your partner is reflecting what's happening inside of you. So sometimes your partner will level up once you're showing self-love and things are fine. However, sometimes that doesn't happen. So they kind of go their separate ways. And then from that healthy frequency or healed frequency, you will attract partners that you deserve, or what you are projecting, or how you are treating yourself. If you're practicing a lot of self-respect, self-love, and you're not coming from that needy or clingy or wounded space, you're going to be attracting the partner exactly where you are, vibrational match to you. So it is possible, but what I suggest people is use that relationship as an opportunity. What this person has come into your life for a reason. You have attracted this person for something specific. So now you look at the opportunities which are coming in front of you. Where are your triggers? How is this person making you feel? Work on yourself. Don't worry if your partner is working or not working. You work on yourself, and eventually there will come a day where you will know what you need at this point in time, how healed you are, what you can put up with, what's satisfying for you, where you're expanding. And when people are in that frequency, they're actually expanding. They become so strong and confident, and they're not wounded anymore. So they want to explore more. They don't want to be constricted in this conscious, unconscious game and waiting for their partner to level up and say, hey, you know what? I've done my work, but I'm going to wait for you till you come. That doesn't happen, Jay. They move out. Relationships dissolve.
Have you experienced witnessing, for example, a client that you're working with, and he or she is expanding through the process of coaching for, let's say, months at a time, and then they are no longer, as you described it, in the same energy frequency as their partner, and their partner begins to push back on them because their partner feels threatened by their changed behavior. And instead of them owning up and joining the party, let's say, they see you the coach as a threat to their relationship, and they in either direct or indirect passive aggressive behaviors kind of give them an ultimatum. Say, this is, they give them a reason why, but they basically really put pressure on them to stop the process of working with you as a coach. Have you experienced that at all in your career?
No, never like that to stop work on themselves. But yes, so much of this, what you just explained, that they start feeling threatened with the expansion of the other partner. So what starts to happen is, and people do this mostly, they will do the work with me, but they are still not conscious enough in their relationships. They're not being authentic with their partners. Okay, so that's still in the closet. And the minute they start embodying it and literally kind of living it out, walking the talk, that's when the other person gets all, he's kind of seeing his triggers in this person, or he's like, what the hell has happened, because things have changed drastically. So they will push back. But most people who have done the work, Jay, they don't have any reactions, and they know that, something, I know now what I want. I know what I'm looking for and what kind of partnerships I want to attract. I'm not satisfied in this, and they will actually move on. Or another thing will happen where they will still get re-traumatized or triggered. Let's say the rejection wound is still not worked upon, or something which happened in the childhood. Let's say mother was bullying or neglect or something like that, right? So there's some residual energy still left. So what I would suggest to them is that, okay, if there is a trigger and there's an emotional charge, work on that. I use that as an opportunity. But I have seen them expand, I'm saying, week after week. And they're clients of mine where, they will work and they're like, you know what, I'm not okay in this relationship. Next week, no, I've gone back being that wounded child because this is not addressed. And then 3 levels up, and then 1 step back, and then 5 steps ahead. So it's like a journey, and it's so beautiful to watch when they're coming into their own alignment and their own power. Jay, I don't have to teach them anything. They come and tell me that, something, I need to move on to something better because I don't feel good being here. I know why I attracted this person 3 years back, but I'm not growing. This person wants me to be constricted and be where he is. I can't do that. It's a disservice to my own self and my own soul. So and there is no remorse or no, they're not attached in a way that they can't move forward or break the relationship or break the marriage. They're okay with it because, remember, the wounded child is healed.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And the wounded child, and the wounded child is being loved. Now they're not looking for that love outside. They're seeing their partner transparent completely what's happening over there. They're also seeing their own inner child, and they are reparenting their own inner child. So when they're not looking for that love and that care and everything outside, it's all being given here. They don't, either the partner levels up to that and starts showing up, that raises his or her frequency and starts the inner work, or they go out there and literally start exploring that, what, now I know what I want, and now I know what is abuse and what is self-love, and now I know what is expansion, and where do I feel happy, where I'm not constricting or repressing myself for the sake of my partner or pleasing my partner or dimming my light, if you say. So this happens all the time.
You mentioned the word codependency a little earlier in the conversation, and I'd like to invite you to expand upon how does codependency impact an unconscious partnership?
So much. Jay, again, codependency comes from our childhood. That's where we have learned it from. But codependency could look something like, if you are my partner, I take the responsibility for fixing your problems. Or I don't talk about myself, I become the martyr, and I just let you take the center stage, right? Because I have been taught as a child that you don't talk about your problems, you have to be selfless. Or the third thing would be where I become a people pleaser, or I please you all the time and I don't tell you the authentic truth, or can't be myself in front of you. So I am just doing things where you are okay, so that there is no confrontation or no conflict, which I was probably doing when I was 5 years old to keep peace in my house, so that my parents don't fight. So I become this people pleaser and peacemaker and stuff. So that's codependency, and exactly the same thing we do in our relationships when we are unconscious. And that's what weighs us down, because, hey, you know something, we can't do this. People do it, then they settle in relationships or they end up, separating. You can't do this, and they are not being authentic. You're not growing, you're not happy. That's the reason why people are not satisfied in their relationships. They just want to have somebody in their lives. How happy they are, how much they're growing, they're genuinely happy. I don't think so, unless you're conscious, and unless you're, that love and that happiness is only going to come from within you, not from your partner. And unconscious people don't know. And codependency is that I will have somebody in my life, I will have somebody to call my own, I will have somebody who will make me feel better and take care of me, and then I'm going to feel good. How? Or in our culture, in Indian culture, I want to marry a rich husband so that he can take care of all my needs and buy me a house and a car. How powerless that can be. Think about it. You can create your own abundance. So they're dependent on the partner for money, for love, for emotional satisfaction, physical satisfaction, so on and so forth. It never ends. So that's why it's like such a taboo divorce in this part of the globe. Now I'm sure people are waking up, but here it's like, oh my God, my whole crutch or something is going to be taken away from me. And then how am I going to kind of live? I'm dependent on this person completely, because of the way we are brought up in our societies and in our culture and the belief systems, what they have taught us, that father needs to do this, or a husband needs to provide this for his wife, and she needs to be doing this, the gender roles and so on and so forth. Nobody consciously, unconscious people don't know they create their reality. They are dependent on somebody else to create their money, their happiness, and their love. And if that person is not giving them, they're constantly living in that fear or lack or limitation. So I think that's so codependent and so dysfunctional, and that's why they're not happy relationships anywhere. People are lugging with it and drudging along. But I don't think so people are satisfied or fulfilled, which conscious relationships will give you. Deep satisfaction and long-term fulfillment, because it's coming from within. You're taking your power back.
What are the action steps to becoming a conscious person so that you have the potential to attract a conscious partner?
Yeah, brilliant question. Oh, how you can become a conscious person to attract a conscious partner, or how can you change your current relationship to a conscious relationship?
Both.
Okay, so first and foremost, I would say, what does a conscious relationship look like? Like I just explained, that let's talk about first unconsciousness to consciousness. If you want to become conscious and attract a conscious partner, you really need to go within. You need to start working on yourself and looking at your relationships for what they are. Your relationships are your mirrors. They're only reflecting your subconscious mind or your wounds. So you really need to start taking responsibility of how your life is going. And first, what I tell people is, ask yourself how happy you are. Are you happy in your job? Are you happy? Are you healthy? Are you happy in your relationships? Are you living your life, and are you doing what you actually wanted to do when you were growing up? Or are you just managing somehow or settling it? So you have to be very authentic with yourself first and foremost, to be honest with you. And once you are doing that, and then you're on the path of being conscious, and then you understand how it is. See, it's like literally spirituality 101 and then 2.0. 101, from unconscious to conscious, you understand, I create my reality, I create my money, my abundance. People are super excited. Wow, I can manifest this, I can manifest that, and that, and that. Second, bang, when we come back into dark nights of the soul, or I'm going through this and I'm going through that, I'm consciously focused, but why the hell I'm attracting so much of negativity, and this happened. Then it is 2.0, where you're coming back to yourself to heal your subconscious mind and realizing that you're attracting most of the stuff from your subconscious mind, and your inner child work or your journey within begins. So it's like a journey. So that's how you become from unconscious to consciousness. Self-love, looking after your inner child, working through your wounds, your traumas, taking responsibility for your life, that I create all of this. I can also uncreate it or create something better for myself. Once you do that, automatically, when you level up, and I've seen that, people start leaving who are not a vibrational match to you, and newer people start coming who you always wanted or desired and who are a frequency match to you. So that's how you can attract conscious people, conscious tribes, your soul tribe, and so on and so forth. But hey, your work is a continuous thing. And if something is left, remember everything is in a circle. It will still show up either in a romantic partner or in a boss or in a friend. It'll still show up. So you have to be conscious, I would say, all round, not only just in romantic relationships. Your approach needs to be highly conscious and take responsibility for what you're creating. However, having said that, how there are certain attributes, or I would like to call them certain qualities of a conscious couple, which would be first and foremost, conscious couples are not attached to the outcome of a relationship, whereas unconscious couples are worried about this marriage needs to last for 50 years and we need to have a silver jubilee or golden jubilee. That's not the agenda of conscious couples. They're only interested in growth. Their priority is growth. They're looking for the experience and what are the projections or the opportunities which are being shown by their partner and how much of inner work they're doing. And maybe they separate and then they attract somebody else, and that relationship they will look at as an opportunity for growth. So it's not about how do I make this relationship work? It's about what am I experiencing? How am I growing in this relationship? What is it that my partner is showing me or giving me an opportunity to grow within me? That's number one. Number two is conscious couples are very, very authentic. In these relationships, every feeling is welcome and nothing is judged. Okay. And you are literally showing yourself bare bones, completely naked, just the way you are. And that's very hard for people to do. But when you do that, it's very, very healing, where you literally say what you're feeling. And your conscious partner is willing to get triggered with whatever answers you're going to give. Let's say I'm asking you something. You are saying, if I say this to her, there's going to be a fight. But in a conscious relationships, I know you're going to probably trigger the hell out of me. But I will be prepared for those triggers, but I will still hold that space for you to be authentic. So that's the stake, like stakes are so high. I don't care what you're saying. I don't care if it's hurting me or if it's triggering me. I'm willing to do that inner work. You be authentic. So both the partners are on the same page in complete transparency, how I'm feeling, what I want to do, what I don't want to do, like literally like a mirror. And
I love that this segment you just shared. There's so many nuggets within. There's so many areas that we could go into right now. But what I really heard, if I may paraphrase you, is that in order for us to really have a strong foundation for a conscious relationship, we have to create a safe space. We have to, some refer to it as hold space. It's a safe space for our partner to be willing to share their deepest truths, their fears, their worries, their experiences, their wounds from the past, and know that even if you're triggered with what I say to you, I know that you're not going to interpret it as I'm pointing the finger at you and blaming you for anything I say in a moment. You will hold space, which means, at least in my experience, it's a partner that is a great listener and is not reacting, but just listening and allowing me to really expand and trust that my feelings, my thoughts, my emotions will not be misconstrued, or as some refer to as gaslighting. But I'll be given permission to just speak my truth, even if it's not aligned with you, because most of my truths really have nothing to do with you and everything to do with my own work that needs to be done. But it's holding that space that was really, for me, the major game changer in experiencing a new way to live in a conscious relationship, because I had met a partner who created that safe space for me. And I went through the first 2 years of my healing journey. I cried pretty much every day, at least once a day, and sometimes multiple times. Um, but she was very consistent in her behavior, very consistent in how she showed up. And the more she showed up consistently for me and with me, the more I was able to open up and really do a lot of the shadow work. Now I'm not suggesting that she was my coach or my teacher or my mentor. She was my partner. We were in a conscious relationship. And it also doesn't mean that the work I did was with her. I did and continue to do the majority of my work, at least almost half my day. When I'm working, investing in my own shadow work, I'm doing it by myself. It's when we get back together later in the day or in the evening that we connect and we share what what we have learned about ourselves, or what clarity, what experience I had as I was doing my own spiritual practice. And there's where that connection comes in. It's not like she's with me 24/7 and we're holding hands doing the work together. No, we do the work interdependent of one another. It's very different than dependent and independent. I said interdependent. For me, what that
Yep.
means is I spend time each day by myself, with myself, for myself. And then at some point later in the day, I meet up, I connect with my partner. And it's such a beautiful new way to experience being in a healthy relationship.
Yes. But not many people are authentic. Jay, people struggle the most in communicating about their real truth or their feelings because fear of being judged or fear of being abandoned or rejected. So that's where my struggle with people is getting them to speak their truth, whatever they're feeling. And there is a fine line, like, if you're communicating and then I need to hold space, like without judgment, right? I need to be, so there's a very fine line, what I've seen, that sometimes people stay in the relationships thinking it's all my work and I'm doing it. And sometimes they are re-traumatizing themselves and getting abused all over again. So there's a very fine line in these soulmate twin flame kind of relationships. You do the work, but you also need to know where your boundaries are and how to set healthy boundaries. So some things are okay and some things are non-negotiable, where everything cannot be a trigger where if your partner is showing bad behavior. So most of the time people are putting up with that abuse thinking it's coming from me. So they are stuck in those kind of relationships forever. However, if the partner is basic, understanding and sympathetic and stuff, he doesn't need to be conscious. And if you're on, like you explained, you were on your journey, you were doing all your work yourself, but still, she was still supporting you. She was still holding that space where you were being heard and you were being respected for whatever you were doing in and of yourself. You see?
Yes, I see. I want to thank you for sharing that, as well as, you're not going to believe it, but we are 3 minutes off the hour. And in the spirit of respecting
Wow.
spirituality gone wild, I believe we have another show coming up at 10 a.m. Well,
Sure.
9 a.m. on the West Coast. But I'd like to invite you to perhaps share some closing thoughts. Perhaps there's someone listening live or on replay that needs to hear the words that you're about to share.
Uh, Give me a direction, Jay. What do you think I should speak about? Because I know most people are not conscious. Should I speak about relationships or how they can at least take their relationships to next level? I can probably tell people that about relationships because most of the relationships are unconscious, and how what you can actually do in your current relationship to kind of succeed in. So number one thing is have the desire to have that relationship, have mutual understanding and mutual respect for each other. Understand that what you are projecting or what your partner is projecting, that's coming from your own past. So work on yourself. Also, be respectful of whatever is being shared, and do not traumatize each other by throwing it back at each other. Communicate, guys. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Say it the way it is. Even try, try baby steps. And if both the partners are desiring to have a relationship, it will last. If they are not, they're going to go their separate ways. So intimacy, again, intimacy, being vulnerable, being okay with who you are, being present, forgiveness, expansion, trust, respect. So these are the basic things I think you can start even doing, and start looking at your relationships from the perspective of that this is the opportunity for me to grow. So instead of blaming, start look at your relationship as a drug, as a feel good. When shitty feelings show up, that's your inner work. Accept that as well. So that's how you take your romantic relationship or current relationship to the next level. Start getting conscious yourself, and then start attracting healthy and better partners for yourself. That's all.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me once again. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity for such an important topic. And it's such a delight. I am so humble and so honored and so grateful.
You're welcome. I'd like to thank you as well for stepping in one more time and showing up as your authentic, true self. These are my closing thoughts. We think that we believe, many of us, that in order for a relationship to be healthy, we have to invest in the relationship. And we all have our own interpretation of what that investment looks like. And my suggestion is that the first place to start is look inward at yourself. And before you can invest and make either an unhealthy, toxic relationship healthier, or if you're looking to find a partner that you can have a conscious relationship with, start by investing in yourself. Start by facing your own inner child wounds from your past and even from your adulthood. Investing in learning who you are, what you need, and what you want, what your purpose is in life. And don't seek it outside of yourself, thinking that when I just meet the right person, I'll be okay. I'll be happy. I'll feel safe. But learning that you can have all of that by showing up and investing in yourself first, doing the work, working with a mentor, a coach like yourself, Priya, or
Thank
myself,
you.
that has done this inner child work. What we do is not based on book theory. It's based on reality. It's based on work that we ourselves had to go through to get to where we're at today. And so, again, thank you so much for joining me on Real People, Real Stories, Raw. We'll catch you next time. Priya, if you could stay in the studio just for a moment, I'd greatly appreciate it. If you joined us live today on a replay,
Sure.
thank you so much for joining us. Without your support, we'd have no reason to show up. So keep showing up for us, and we'll keep putting out content for you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you next time.